Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This reports for the 20th. Well, once we got above that beginning algo level, market was satisfied. Once it was able to hold it, we came back, retraced it, and it was off to the races from there because that just triggers same level of buying activity and interest. You know that you've got shorts pretty much captured at that particular stage, and then it's just a drive. So above the 76 here, now we're caught between 76 and 100. Obviously the push is going to be towards the 100 in that particular case, and nothing stopping that. Once we saw the MBI white rising, but behind magenta, you knew that while shorts were adding in there, they just didn't have as much force as the buy. And of course, that was a bonus from the Fed without actually having to do anything. So you're getting this quiet QE that really benefits just those that have access to that supply, but they're the ones that move the market. It's not the general public, never has been. And that just drives things. Now, the question really was when we look at the NQ, it was slightly behind and had to get caught up to it. And that was the real question as to whether or not the NQ here was going to reach what we've been looking for, which was this previous algo level, and just achieve that. And now bouncing back and forth. So that becomes the only resistance. But when you look at that MBI readings again, still super positive. You had a little deviation here from the DOC with Cyan taking a lead, but that's just more short activity, and you just have a little softening of short-term buyers. But DOC red continuing to rise and now moving positive on the shakeout, and should be enough to propel things. We will watch this where the NQ still in a divergence because you're already getting a crossover here of the blue, but as long as MBI magenta is well over the 33, still going to continue to have more positive strength than not. And if that breaks down, we'll see it earlier in the smaller time frames, but it was enough to propel things. And of course, we knew that positive news, with the convention and stuff like that, that they were going to continue to ride this. And again, the reality is here, Treasury's just not reflecting reality. It's an expectation that, the Fed will have to cut in September and that they'll be on the right side of it. But if that doesn't happen, then they're going to be way upside down on this again. And even if it does, they're still going to be upside down because it's a negative yield. So you're forced to be in equities, or you have to move into other spaces, commodities, and that leaves you two other choices. Oil. Well, oil's fading off here, and this becomes a real question if oil continues to fade simply because there isn't enough demand on it. Well, that's what we're going to be looking at, because at the end of the day, failing demand means that there's slowdown taking place, and with the inflation what it's been, oil should definitely be pretty close to that upper 80 level, and a decline there poses some interesting questions as to what is the catalyst for that. Is it a supply issue that's overdone, or is it just failing of demand? It's all bonus news for the euro because their expectation that U.S. cuts rates, just a skyrocket for moving into eurozone, which isn't doing any better. In fact, it's doing far worse, but they're able to trade against that and keep moving it up. And now they're well into the range of safety. So it's a nice secure spot for the Eurozone to be in, because when they were down in this 107.16 area, it was a scary time, and the central banks have to get involved in that, and it really pushed it. And it's keeps a balance, and they just keep playing that back and forth. And we don't really care. We just continue to follow it and go from there. What the hidden, and this is what the market is really showing, is that it can't contain gold. And that's just a reflection that they see that continued deficits in that are going to continue to erode purchasing power. And going into commodities, of course, we saw the limited effect of what was happening in cryptocurrencies. And so gold has just been the outlier shiner for all of it. While the gold was making its run with crypto, when crypto hit that little roadblock with the news-related situations, it faded back a little bit. But gold isn't going to stop because central banks are buying it in records as opposed to buying treasuries. which begs the question, who's buying treasuries, particularly at the yield that's being offered. And that poses a real interesting question going forward as auctions could become more challenging, particularly when you look at the divergence. I mean, I don't think the market believes that there's any difference between Trump and Harris as far as deficits go. I think that they see systemic huge deficits going forward, and it's just built into the setup. But Bitcoin rallied a little bit here. Positive readings from that crossover, and it should break through that 50% barrier, particularly if the supply-demand issues are resolved. I think they're realizing that the idea that the Mt. Gox thing was going to create this huge supply of sellers that wanted to get out doesn't seem to be the case, and that's only going to be a net positive. Of course, also the lower price tag when it comes to miners after the halving really had complicated a little bit, but I think that they pretty much worked out most of those things, and I think you're going to see that they'll begin their rally after they've faded out and gotten rid of the weak hands, so to speak, and I think they're poised to make some significant moves. So that'll be probably second half of the year, kind of later last quarter type situation where it continues to rise. Pretty boring from a trade standpoint, not a whole lot to do. Cyan under red. So we ended up in the last days with a couple little back and forths on that, but still overall cyan under red. And the fact that you've had steel below the cyan, that's a critical factor for maintaining that continuation, and really not a whole lot to do. I mean, that is just as simple green as it gets. Strong shakeout. Wasn't overdone in any way. We're now finally starting to get into a little bit of excess area right here, which means you could see a little bit of fill back in between. And of course, positive extremes nonstop. But you can see these are previous algo levels from way back, and market stabilized on it. Once it stayed above, skyrocketing, should shoot up towards the next one up here at the 5650 range. It's pretty clean. It's not a whole lot to really argue with it, and that is what the market is based on. You just go with what it is, and if they had the hedge fund extreme, selling within, overall rise, it just became an opportunity to continue to drive shorts out of the market. And this is the setup that we see over and over, unless there's some change in what they consider the readings, and I don't think you're going to get that, because they're going to continue to report nothing but positive stuff all the way through the election. After that, we'll see. Depends on who wins, whether or not the data suddenly reverts to a different area. But you can see from early morning all the way through nonstop, and that's continued into the European session, and there's been no change. They're just filling back a little bit of the spike, and that's all happened here, this fill back within just the last few minutes. So barring any news events, and that's the big unknown, whether you have a Middle East situation and that could upset the apple cart. That's about your only existential threat. Otherwise, the real pain trade is to the upside, and continuing to frighten people into soft economic conditions. But that's exactly what the market looks for. When you have people who are uncertain or move to the sidelines in cash, they could take advantage of it. Then they become late to the game, and they have to catch up, particularly when it comes to funds trying to match the readings. So overall, pretty straightforward. Nothing special, but if there's anything unique, I'll put it on the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.